This could be a full-on 2-hour podcast just going on about
Right,
that. But
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hausman. Joining me today is the definition of a repeat rock star. As a matter of fact, he was guest number 1 on Delivering Marketing Joy. He's a tech entrepreneur, a brand and positioning expert, community builder, and that is totally true. A mentor, a dreamer, and a doer. He's also the co-founder and chief brand officer at commonsku, Mark Graham. Thank you so much for being here, buddy.
what a kind and enthusiastic introduction, and so great to be back on the show. I tell you, the quality of this show has only improved since your first guest. I'll tell you that. So,
dude, it's so cool. I think back to that first time, and you were one of the nice people who agreed to do this before it was a thing. And obviously, it's been almost 500 episodes, or at this point, and you just go. You were kind enough to agree to it when you're like, what is this idiot doing? And it turned out okay. So I appreciate the faith you placed in me. So appreciate that.
I think I was the idiot, not you, but anyways.
We can argue about that over beer someday. But let's jump in. So, I think back to that time, and I don't know that commonsku was a startup right then, but it was pretty new. So you've gone from startup to a stable business in our industry to, I think, a force in promo. So first of all, congratulations, because that not many people make that leap, right? And second, I always like to ask people who've sort of gone through this journey, what are some of the things that you know now that you wish you would have known when you started?
I think a couple things. And first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. It's been such a wild ride and so fun to build this business. And we're really honored to be where we're at right now in promo, and no short order to the support of people like you, Kirby. So thank you. So I think that one of the things for me as an entrepreneur, and I know that you share some of these tendencies too as a fellow entrepreneur, Kirby, is that you can't control everything. And I think in those early days, that gives some level of comfort, as an entrepreneur of a small business at the time. Your natural inclination is to control everything, to sweat the details. And certainly there are dividends that are paid by having that focus on the details and your ability to control things and take care of people. But pretty soon that approach does not tend to work that well. And I actually need to remind myself of that even to this day, as commonsku is quite a bit bigger. That so I think to answer your question in terms of what I wish I kind of knew back then is just like, stop sweating every single detail. It's important to be focused on the details, and it's important to have that control, but it's just that it's this happy medium, because I think there's a point where there's just a law of diminishing returns where you just create more anxiety and stress in yourself, and you're actually doing the business a disservice. So I wish I had known that, like 2024, Mark, I wish I'd come back to sort of 2011 when we were starting the business. And I think another thing is, I think at the end of the day, creating a great business is all about taking good care of your customers and your fellow employees and colleagues. And I know that sounds like the most glib and cliche piece of advice, but it's something that I think I look back at and say, like, if there was anything we did right, and there were lots of things we did wrong in those early days, it was this belief that if we took care of our colleagues and we took care of our customers and we played this long game, then we knew it would pay off. So
yeah, I think that's great, Mark. I remember when I first took vacation from the business, and that's always hard, especially and I remember giving that piece of advice to my team. Was that, okay, yes, you can call me, yes, this, all that stuff. But when in doubt, just take care of the customer. And if you do that, I'm not a yeller and a screamer. Maybe I come back and say, hey, we could do it a little different. But as long as you took care of the customer, you've done the right thing. Yep. And I do think sometimes we lose sight of that because we're trying to build this, or, hey, we're going to develop scalability and we want to do that. Like, as long as you do that with the eyes of the customer in mind, I think you're in good shape. So I think that's great advice, brother.
100%.
So the other thing that but also commonsku have gotten known as creating both in-person and remote events that really pop. And you through the pandemic, you needed to do the remote events, but you did those first class too. I'll say that. But SKUCon and SKU Camp and all these events that you have created. So I'm sure people come to you and say, like, what should I do? I want to do an event. What advice do you give people who want to create a great event?
This could be a full-on 2-hour podcast just going on about that. But and maybe we should have a separate episode and we could talk all about it. But I think for me, I was thinking about this question, and it really comes down to 3 main things. Like 3 things that I think all great events do. And number 1 is simply to be a great host. People are coming to an event, they're anxious, they're insecure, they're nervous, they may not have been to the event before, they're worried about getting excluded. Are they going to learn something at this event? And at the end of the day, so I think there's a level of sort of uncertainty and anxiety that comes with any person who's stepping foot into your venue, whether it's remote, but particularly in person. And if you can approach that with a great host mindset, then that's job number 1. And this is very basic advice, but you think about how you're made to feel when you go to a dinner party or you're invited to a party or whatever the case may be. And you know what it's like to feel included, and you know what it's like to feel excluded and ignored. And if you feel included, then your heart is going to be full. You're going to show up and you're going to be you're just going to feel so much better about the experience, and you're going to get some value from it. So a real obsession about being a great host is number 1. Number 2, and this builds upon being a good host, is focus on an amazing guest experience. Like what venue have you selected? What are the little things that you're doing to make the person who's arrived there feel welcome and comfortable, and maybe not in like a traditional stuffy business kind of environment, right? Which is maybe what they would expect. So I think focus on great guest experiences, number 2. And number 3, we talked about community building at the outset. I think for me, what I have really learned when I attend an event as an attendee, it's all about my ability to be connected with other people. And especially if I don't know other people. So our ability to connect guests and our customers who come to these events, and always looking out, like we'll have a briefing before the event. And one of the number 1 things we say to our team at commonsku is scan the room. Who is the person standing against the wall or looking at their phone, looking maybe a little bit shy or outside of a conversation? Go right up to that person and introduce them to Kirby or to Danny Rosen or to Bill Petrie or whatever. And then, and I find that doesn't happen at a lot of places. And so I think the ability to connect people, and that really allows an event to pop, and it creates this positive energy in the room where people feel like they're really getting to know one another and they're getting outside their comfort zones. So,
man, if you are thinking about creating an event, you should go back and listen to that again. That was really good. And I think I made a note while you were talking. It's like you can tell that you have attended a lot of events and you've learned from that experience in creating your own event, right? Like you can just see that because those are things that you experience. And so I think that's well done.
I feel it it's a very visceral feeling for sure. And to be clear, I've attended quite a number of events where, as an attendee, where hats off to the organizers. They've done an extraordinary job. And I'm a student of theirs and have certainly borrowed from them. And listen, we've all been to events where you go in and you're sitting there and you're trying to engage. There's cliques and no one's connecting you. You're just a number. And those are the ones where I go, you know what? I just left halfway through. Right. Yeah. I have better things to do. And I kind of leave in that point, like disappointed and almost a little upset. And I go, you know what? I'm sure that we haven't hit, a grand slam with every one of our events in terms of people. And if that's the case, I'm truly sorry. But it's something that we're just really, really focused on because I never want people to feel that way. So,
yeah. And for what it's worth, you can tell. I mean, just from the moment you walk in the door. So that's awesome. So I always brag on sort of your crew, your commonsku team. You have a great team, but I look at this again. We talked about the evolution of the many years we've been talking. Your team has definitely grown. So How has your role changed when it comes to managing the team?
Well, we'll see if any of my colleagues are listening to this podcast, and they might call you up, Kirby, and say, "I don't agree with Mark's answer." But I mean, the team has grown quite a bit. It started off with just myself and Catherine, and now we're just shy of 60 people at commonsku, and
that's awesome.
And so it's certainly a much larger organization than when we first started. It still feels manageable. I mean, it's not like we're 6,000 people, but certainly gone are the days where we could just sort of yell across the office and say, "Hey, did you do something?" So for me, and listen, this is an ongoing effort for me, is getting out of the weeds as much as possible. That's really hard for someone like me. I'm going to own that. But I think I'm better at that now than I ever have been. And recognizing that the people who are at the company are in almost all ways better at their jobs than I ever was when I did their job back in the early days of commonsku. And recognizing that people are only going to stay at your company if they feel like they're respected, that they're given great guidance, but you're not micromanaging them all the time.
Right.
And I feel like if I think about some of the folks on our team that have been with us for many, many, many years, I suspect that that's what they would feel about myself and Catherine in terms of co-founders of the company, in terms of their relationships with us. Catherine is a way better manager than I am. I'll say that up front. We have very different styles, but I think that that's certainly the reason why you see people at the company who have been here for a long, long time. Is they feel respected, they feel very challenged, and they're put in an environment where they're not, either second guessed or micromanaged.
Yeah. Catherine and Amy, my wife and your wife, they both have the task of managing us too. So, I mean, they have to be really great at managing. So that's really good. Cool, man. So final question for you. Who are some people that inspire you today? I mean, and when I want to frame this question in like, maybe there was somebody 10 years ago that you're like, oh my gosh, that's the person that I look up to. And maybe that's the same person today, right? But sometimes we evolve and we have different people that we admire. So who are some people that inspire you?
Oh, gosh, I mean, there's a big long list, and I'll try to go through it quickly. So I would start off with my business partner and wife. There's no one better out there than Catherine Graham. Yes. She's incredibly patient, very, very smart, an amazing partner of mine in business and in life. And so she, I certainly admire her for her intelligence and her ability to lead and to grow this great company, and also be my partner in life and mother of three amazing kids. My parents are, fortunately, they're still alive and in great health. And without them and their support of me, literally in all of my life, but also particularly in the evolution of Right Sleeve and commonsku. Okay. Well, neither of them are in the business profession. Just always there as supportive, kind of shoulders to cry on, so to speak, and just the consummate cheerleaders. And there's no better people out there than my two parents. And I would say within the industry, I want to give there's so many amazing people in the industry.
Right. It's such an unfair question.
It is, but maybe I'll give two, because I was thinking about this. So one is my good friend, and certainly your good friend, Denise Taschereau. I've had the chance of knowing Denise for the better part of 10 years and, sort of met her in the earlier stages of Fairware and sort of this early stage of her agitating for sustainability and sort of the eco movement when, to be perfectly honest, not many people were listening. Right. And, it was kind of this, thing off to the side, distributorship based in Canada, smaller distributor. And what she's been able to build with her partner, Sarah White, in building a mission-driven, really a great sized distributor that is beating the drum of sustainability and eco-friendly and doing it in a way that is not greenwashing, but is totally legit and carrying the message to the masses through her involvement with PPAI is nothing short of, inspiring, right? Because to go from that sort of small voice way back when to the platform that she has now, not many people are able to do that. So kudos to Denise. And then I was recently in Salt Lake City, and I was visiting Renya Nelson, who is the founder of Brand Aid. And Brand Aid is just one of those distributors that I have always admired and looked up to for years and years. And to visit their operation, and Renya, of course, runs Brand Aid with her partner, Dane. And the two of them, and Renya certainly specifically as the founder, just such a creative force in this space, and have really set, I think, the bar that I think our industry is starting to really reach in terms of the creative offering for promotional merchandise, and is the furthest thing away from trinkets and trash. And I see what she's building in her office and the people. And this is such a great part of my job, is that I get a chance to see all these amazing people in the industry, many of whom are on commonsku. And I'm blown away by it. And as a distributor, a former distributor with Right Sleeve, I look at that and go, man, like I have something to learn from these people. So shout out to Renya Nelson, and there's so many other people, but I don't have time for it. So
I was going to say, it's hard to narrow it down. That's what it's like. I love this question, but I hate it because it's hard because you're always going to leave somebody out. But man, no arguments on Renya or Denise. Those are great. Yeah. And obviously Catherine and your parents as well. So that's awesome. Mark, I always appreciate, you and I just getting to chat, whether we record it or not. But just real quick, where can people find out more about commonsku?
So we are a simple Google search away, commonsku.com. You can just type in commonsku into your web browser. We'll come up first. I am active on all the social platforms. Myself, as Mark Graham, you can look me up, or commonsku is also very, very active on the social platforms. LinkedIn is a great spot to connect with me personally. And I love to share whatever experiences I've been able to learn as a business person in the promotional products industry. Please reach out, and I'd be more than happy to help. Feel a rising tide floats all boats. So
agreed, brother.
Happy to help. And thank you so much for the time on the podcast. It's always an honor to be here, Kirby.
Yeah, it's always fun. And, I always say we'll have to do it again sometime. And you and I have done this quite a few times. It's always a pleasure. So thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks so much, Kirby.
You bet. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.